I'm Evan, I'm 28. After my divorce, I didn't really know where else to go, so I packed up and moved back to Alabama, to this little town called Chatham. The only place waiting for me was my grandfather's old house, the one he left us after he passed a few years back. It sits about 10 minutes outside of town, right in the middle of 10 acres of woods. Quiet, isolated, the kind of silence you think you'll enjoy until it starts to feel heavy. The place is old, too. Wooden floors that never stop creaking, doors that swell and stick, and this constant chill in the air no matter how high you crank the heat. Still, it was free, and at the time, I didn't have a better option. The first few nights felt normal. I unpacked, cleaned, tried to settle in. At night, I'd sit on the porch with a beer, listening to nothing but the wind through the trees and the occasional owl. Peaceful, almost comforting. But that calm didn't last long, because soon the noises started. The first time I heard it was on the 7th night. I had just crawled into bed around midnight, heavy-eyed and ready to finally drift off when it cut through the silence, a whistle. Not a song I knew, not even close. It was broken, uneven, sliding off key like someone who didn't care if the notes fit together. It sounded like it was coming from the woods behind the house, slow and steady, almost like footsteps pacing with the tune. My skin went cold. Who the hell whistles in the middle of the night out here? I told myself it was a hunter, maybe some drunk neighbor stumbling home, but deep down, I didn't believe it. The next night, it came back. Same time, same twisted tune, but closer. Too close. I jumped out of bed, flipped the porch light on, nothing. Grabbed my flashlight, stepped into the yard, my breath sharp in the cold air. Still nothing. No footprints, no rustling, just the whistle trailing off deeper into the trees like it wanted me to follow. I tried to shrug it off, but it never stopped. Every single night, always around 1:15, 1:19, never late, never early, like clockwork. That's when I stopped thinking it was random and started believing someone out there was watching me, waiting, and enjoying the game. A few days later, I called the sheriff's office hoping they'd at least check it out. An older deputy showed up, a man I'll just call Deputy H. He'd been around forever, you could tell by the way he carried himself. When I explained the whistling, he went quiet, then told me something that made my stomach drop. He said, "Your granddaddy used to call us about the same thing. Someone whistling around this place at night, always in the spring. We never found a trace." I had no clue my grandfather had lived through it too, and hearing that made the house feel colder. Deputy H told me to lock every door, stay inside after dark. So I did. I checked every window, even wedged chairs under the knobs. But none of it mattered. The whistling kept coming back. Closer each night. One night I heard it right behind the shed, sharper and louder than ever. Like whoever it was had walked right up to the edge of the yard. My heart was pounding as I grabbed the flashlight and peeked through the blinds, but all I saw was darkness and shifting trees. I couldn't bring myself to step outside. The following night, it moved to the front porch. 3 long, broken whistles right outside my door. Then, dead silence that felt heavier than sound. The night after that, it came from under the floorboards, and I swear it sounded like someone lying in the crawl space whistling up through the vents. I didn't close my eyes once. The next morning, desperate for answers, I tore through the attic until I found a box of my grandfather's journals. What I read froze me. He wrote about the same whistling year after year, always in spring, always when he was alone after my grandmother passed. He admitted he never saw who it was, but he kept a rifle by the door every night, convinced someone was out there watching. I called Deputy H again and showed him my grandfather's journal. For the first time, I saw him look uneasy. He just said, "Be careful, and don't open the door if you don't know who it is." That night I couldn't bring myself to sleep. I sat on the couch with a shotgun across my lap, hand shaking because I barely knew how to even load it. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the whistling returned. But this time, it wasn't drifting through the trees. It was inside, from the hallway. The sound grew louder with each step, like someone was moving toward me in the dark. My chest tightened, my finger trembling on the trigger. I stood up, aimed into the hallway, and shouted, "Who's there?" The whistling stopped cold. I flipped the light on. Nothing. No one. The silence after was worse than the sound itself. I didn't sleep at all. 2 nights passed and I hadn't heard it again, but I felt myself getting sick. Whoever it was, they were real. And they wanted me to know it. After that night, everything went dead quiet for 2 days. No whistling, no movement, not even the creak of the old house. I almost let myself believe it was over. But on the third night, just past midnight, it started again. At exactly 1:17 a.m., I woke up to a new sound. Not whistling this time, knocking. Slow, heavy knocks. 3 of them. They came from the back door, steady and deliberate, then silence. I lay frozen in bed, straining to hear when a floorboard in the hallway groaned. Then another. Someone was walking inside. My stomach dropped as the hallway light flickered once, then went out completely. My chest tightened, but I forced myself up, gripping the shotgun with trembling hands. I stepped into the dark hallway, heart hammering so loud I thought it would give me away. At the far end, a figure stood motionless. Black clothes. Skin pale as paper. Just watching me, not moving an inch. My throat was dry, but I forced the words out, voice cracking, "Don't move." My fingers shook on the trigger as the silence swallowed everything. In the dark, I saw the figure shift, lifting a leg like they were about to bolt. I shouted, "Stop!" but they shot down the hallway and out of sight, their footsteps pounding heavier than I expected as they tore through the front door into the night. Adrenaline took over. I ran outside and fired into the darkness, aiming straight ahead, part of me hoping the shot would hit. The blast echoed off the house and stung my ears as I yelled, "Don't come back!" Shaking, I locked the doors, jumped into my truck, and drove straight into town. That night, I slept in the cab, too scared to breathe easy. The next morning, Deputy H came back, and the first thing he noticed was that the front door was unlocked again. That meant one thing. Whoever had been creeping around had a key to my grandfather's house. Nothing was stolen, nothing broken, but the thought of someone slipping in and out chilled me to the bone. Deputy H told me to change the locks immediately, then lowered his voice and said off the record, "If I were you, I'd move out. Somebody out here doesn't want you in that house, same way they didn't want your grandfather." I didn't waste time. I drove straight to the hardware store and changed every lock before the sun went down. After that, I packed up and left for my parents' place out of state. My dad handled the rest, selling the old house once we cleared out the few things that mattered to us. He never told the buyers about the stalker or the decades of strange nights my grandfather endured, and honestly, I can't blame him. But the truth still eats at me. Someone out there had a key, someone who never showed their face, and someone who clearly wanted us gone. I'll never know who it was, or why my grandfather stayed silent, and that unsettles me more than anything. My best guess? A disturbed neighbor hiding in plain sight, keeping the same twisted routine for years. I eventually moved into a city where there are more lights, more people, and less of that crushing countryside silence. But even now, late at night, I still catch myself listening for the sound of that whistle.
I'm 16 now and live in the city, but the first 8 years of my life were spent in the countryside, in a tiny village of barely 90 people. Out there, nobody worried much about kids running around on their own. So from a young age, I could walk the whole village without my parents watching. Everyone knew everyone, so well that my friends and I could match every single car to its owner just by the plate number. One blazing hot summer day, my buddy Julian and I were desperate for a cold Coca-Cola, but we didn't have enough change. Just when we were about to give up, an old woman called us over from her porch. She told us her birthday was coming soon, and she wanted to make fresh mint tea for everyone, but she'd run out of mint plants. If we could fill 2 bags with mint leaves, she said she'd give us enough money to buy all the soda we wanted. For us, that sounded perfect. Free drinks without having to beg our parents. That afternoon, we went out searching. The sun beating down so hard it felt like our skin was burning. Sweat soaked through our shirts as we crouched in every corner of the village, picking whatever mint we could find. But after hours of work, we had barely filled half a bag. Frustration kicked in. We knew there was no chance we'd finish before dark. Still, we kept wandering further, clinging to the hope that somewhere out there, we'd stumble on a hidden patch of mint waiting for us. Out of nowhere, 2 tall figures walked up to us. At 7 years old, they looked like giants, even though they were probably no taller than 5'7". What threw me off was their clothing, head to toe in black, big hoodies pulled tight, pants that clung to their legs. I couldn't even see their faces clearly, just shadows under the hoods. They didn't look older than 17, yet their voices came out strangely cheerful, almost like they were trying too hard to sound harmless. "Are you kids out here alone?" one of them asked. Julian shot me a quick look, worry flashing in his eyes, and made a small hand gesture for us to leave. But I didn't get it. I stood frozen, confused, not realizing that ignoring that signal might be the biggest mistake of the day. I turned back to the two guys and tried to sound friendly, even cheerful. "Yeah, we're just looking for some mint plants," I said, almost whining about how tired we were. I asked if they knew where we could find more. For a split second, I swear I saw one of them smirk, like he knew something we didn't. Then he crouched down in front of me and patted my head. Too casual, too familiar. Julian reacted instantly, stepping closer and pulling me back by the arm, his face tightening with worry. His voice came out sharp as he asked, "Who are your parents?" In our village, that wasn't a normal small talk question. It was how people placed you, figured out your whole family line. The way Julian said it, though, wasn't curious. It was protective, almost like he was testing them, daring them to prove they belonged. And the air around us grew heavier, like something bad was about to unfold. Julian grew up in the countryside, so he knew people far better than I did. I think that's why he was so tense. He didn't recognize these two guys at all. And the way they acted, chatting with little kids when no adults were around, even patting my head like they owned the moment, it set off alarms for him. When he asked who their parents were, they dodged it completely, eyes shifting back to me like I was the one they wanted. Then one of them said, "Actually, we've seen a big field of mints. You see that hill over there? That's where we came from. We can take you there. Fill your bags and more." My stomach dropped. That hill wasn't a mystery. I knew it well. Julian and I played hide and seek in the woods up there with other kids almost every summer night. It was full of corn, grapes, and watermelons, but never once had I seen mints growing there. Not a single leaf. I was just a clueless kid, so all those red flags didn't mean much to me. I nodded quickly, tugging Julian's arm like this was some great adventure. The two guys seemed pleased and started leading us away from the village. Step by step, we drifted farther, and I felt Julian's hand shaking in mine. A chill ran down my back when I looked around and realized the village had vanished from sight. Ahead was nothing but dark forest, no sign of any mint field at all. I asked where exactly we were going, but they only laughed it off with answers like, "You'll see," or "Just be patient." Sweat poured down my face as I slowed my steps, my chest tight with panic. Every instinct screamed that something terrible was about to happen, yet my legs kept moving forward like I had no control. Deep down, I knew if either of us tried to turn back, it wouldn't end well. Then Julian leaned in close, so close I could feel his breath on my ear. In the faintest whisper, words that still haunt me to this day slipped out. "There's something wrong with these two. Run." The moment he said it, he yanked my arm and bolted downhill, dragging me with him. My legs exploded into motion, pumping harder than ever before, the world blurring around me. I wasn't just running fast, I was running for my life. And deep inside, I knew Julian was right. Behind us, I heard the two guys curse, their footsteps pounding as they began to chase. My lungs burned, but all that came out of me was a raw scream mixed with sobs. I don't even remember breathing. I just remember running like my life depended on it. Somehow, two terrified kids sprinted nearly 2 kilometers without stopping until the village came into view. When the old woman who had asked us to gather mint saw us, we were drenched in sweat, faces ghostly pale, tears streaming like we'd seen death itself. By then, the footsteps had vanished. The boys must have stopped following. She rushed us inside, pressed chocolate into our hands, and asked what happened. I couldn't speak. My mouth wouldn't work, so Julian explained everything. The woman's face turned grim, and she scolded us for being reckless, though Julian took the blame, saying he had been the one who trusted them. After that, his parents kept him inside for a whole month, and the memory of those two shadows in the woods never left me. It took me a long time to recover from that small trauma, and the truth is, I never learned who those guys were or what they really wanted from us. Now that I'm older, I can guess, and the thought makes my stomach turn. Running downhill that fast, I could have easily tripped, and that might have been the end. The only reason I made it out was Julian. He never let go of my hand. Without him, I don't even want to imagine what would have happened that day. And now, years later, Julian isn't just my childhood friend, he's my boyfriend. Every time I think back, I realize he saved me in more ways than one. When I was little, my parents worked a lot, so much that both of them had to juggle 2 jobs just to keep our family afloat. Because they were gone most of the time, they found us a babysitter online, a young woman named Michelle. She was in her early 20s, always full of energy, and for about 4 or 5 months she came over every weekday to take care of me and my older brother Cameron. I was 7 and he was 8, and we loved having her around. She wasn't like the usual grumpy sitters. She laughed with us, played with us, even helped us with our online classes. But when summer came, my parents told Michelle to take a break, to enjoy herself after all she'd done for us. That left one big question: who would watch us for the summer? Instead of hiring someone new, my parents decided to take Cam and me to stay with our grandparents in Texas. They lived out in the countryside, far from our home in Oklahoma, and though the drive felt endless to a kid like me, the reward was finally pulling up to their cabin-style house, sitting in the middle of wide-open fields with thick woods stretching out behind. To one side was a barn filled with animals, cows, goats, chickens, and more, the kind of place that felt magical at first. After a warm welcome, Grandpa took us exploring while Mom and Dad stayed inside with Grandma, who was busy cooking dinner. That night was perfect. Family, laughter, and even playing with their dog Cora before bed. Cam and I shared a room with a bunk bed and a small TV, while our parents slept in the room right next to us. That night, my parents crashed almost instantly, worn out from the long drive, knowing they had to head back the next day for work. Cam and I stayed up watching cartoons, the soft glow of the TV filling the room until we drifted off to sleep with it still playing. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my window. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The blinds kept me from seeing who it was, but I could hear every step. The TV noise masked it enough that Cam kept sleeping, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. Then came a faint rattling at the window, followed by a low grunt. My blood froze. Someone was outside, and they were trying to open it. Terrified, I rushed to my parents' room and shook them awake, telling them what I'd heard. Half asleep, they brushed it off, saying it was probably my imagination. Still, they got up to check, but by the time we looked outside, nothing was there. They sighed and told me it was likely just an animal. We were in the countryside after all. Maybe they were right. Maybe my kid brain twisted the sound into something else. Eventually, I lay back down and drifted off. The next morning, I woke to the smell of Grandma cooking breakfast while my parents packed to leave. We all ate together, and then, just like that, my parents were gone. As soon as my parents drove off, Grandpa took Cam and me to feed the animals and let Cora stretch her legs. I begged to hold her leash, and Grandpa finally handed it to me, telling me to keep a firm grip. At first, everything was fine, but then I noticed every few steps Cora would stop dead in her tracks, forcing me to tug her forward. When I glanced down, I realized she wasn't just stalling. She was staring into the woods. My stomach dropped. I followed her gaze and froze. A dark figure stood between the trees, half hidden, its body pressed against the trunk like it was trying to peek out at us. Even though the face was swallowed in black, I felt its eyes locked right on me. I spun to call out to Grandpa, but he and Cam were already 15 feet ahead, leaving me alone with Cora trembling at my side. I yanked on Cora's leash and ran to catch up with Grandpa and Cam, blurting out what I'd seen in the woods. But when we turned to look, the figure was gone. It wasn't like he ran off. He had just vanished, like he was never there to begin with. I scanned the tree line, certain I should have seen some sign of movement, but there was nothing but still shadows. Grandpa already knew about the noise I'd heard the night before, so he realized I wasn't just making things up. I caught the flicker of concern in his face, though he forced a calm smile and said it was probably just the deer that bolted when I ran. His words didn't convince me, but I nodded anyway. We finished feeding the animals and went back to the house, trying to shake off the weirdness. The rest of the day felt normal. We watched movies, played in the sprinklers, laughed like nothing had happened. That night, Grandma cooked a huge dinner, and I ate until I was stuffed. After a quick bath, Cam and I curled up in our room again, the glow of cartoons filling the dark, and drifted off to sleep, unaware of what was waiting. Around 1 a.m., I woke to a low humming sound right outside the window. My blood ran cold when I realized it was humming the exact theme song of Cyber Chase, the cartoon still playing on our TV. Cam snored beside me, dead asleep, but I lay frozen, listening. The blinds kept me from seeing out, but I knew this wasn't an animal. It was a person. My first thought stupid as it was that maybe Grandpa was outside smoking and had picked up the tune from the TV. Clinging to that idea, I whispered, "Grandpa?" The humming cut off instantly. Silence pressed in so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat.
After half a minute of silence, a voice finally called out, low and steady. It's Grandpa. Come out here, kid. I want to show you something cool." My chest tightened, but being the naive kid I was, I slipped on my shoes and stepped outside. The night sky was clear, stars scattered everywhere, and for a moment I was distracted by how peaceful it looked. Then I reached the side of the house, and there he was, my grandpa, standing by the window, hood pulled low, stretching out his hand. Without thinking, I grabbed it, and he started leading me toward the barn in silence. I whispered questions, but he never replied. That's when it hit me. Why would Grandpa be out here at 1 a.m, dressed like that, not saying a word? My eyes dropped to the hand I was holding, and my blood went cold. It wasn't my grandpa's hand at all. It was the hand of someone much younger. I tried to slip my hand away, but his grip tightened like a vice. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I forced myself to stay quiet, terrified he'd realize I knew something was wrong. That's when I noticed it, a long wooden handle sticking out from the back of his pants. My stomach twisted with panic. Before I could react, my real grandpa's voice rang out from the house, calling my name. The man froze, his head snapping toward the sound, and in that split second, I tore my hand free and stumbled backward. He glared at me for a moment before suddenly bolting into the woods. I sprinted back to the house screaming for help, and the second I burst inside, my grandpa pulled me into his arms while my grandma was already on the phone with the police. Minutes later, cops arrived and combed the property. They found him crouched in a ditch nearby, clutching stolen tools from the barn. But the worst part, the thing that still makes me shiver, they said he had an axe tucked into the back of his pants.
When the police searched more closely, they discovered the lock on Grandpa's shed had been broken, leaving every dangerous tool inside wide open for him to use. A couple of days later, we learned the truth that shook me to my core. The man turned out to be Michelle's ex-boyfriend. Let's call him Dave. He admitted to stalking us and confessed his plan that night was to take me. He thought it would be easier to grab a little girl, and because Michelle cared so much about me, he believed he could use me to control her. His twisted logic was that if he threatened me, Michelle would do anything he asked, even take him back. He swore he never intended to hurt me, but hearing that didn't make me feel safer. It made everything worse. After the incident, my parents picked Cam and me up a week later, determined to find better jobs so they could be home more often. They also let Michelle go, which I understood. Looking back, I'm grateful the police station was close by, but most of all, I'm thankful my grandpa woke up at the right moment that night. Even 20 years later, I still shiver when I think about how easily that night could have ended differently.